So you really want to know how to use your graphics calculator when you're doing this quadratic equation stuff. When you've got your graphics calculator, unless the question specifically says something like show algebraically, you can use your graphics calculator quite a bit. Now this question should be one you're familiar with. The path of a javelin is thrown and it follows this function where h is height in meters and d is the meters horizontal travel. So d is going to be my x-axis and h is going to be my y-axis. It says sketch the graph of the rule for 0 is less than d is less than 22. So between 0 and 22, and d is our x value, by finding the intercepts and the coordinates of the turning point. Okay, so to do that on my graphics calculator, menu, go into graph mode. Whoops. All right, and it should say y1. Now, if it says graph function and it doesn't say y equals, if it says some other thing, you have to change the type by pressing F3 and changing it to y equals. If you've already got some equations in here, you can delete them by pressing F2 and pressing delete. And just scroll down, delete that one if there's one there. So you want that screen to be totally empty and you want it to be y equals. Now, this says h and d, but we can't use h and d on the calculator, so we just have to change the h to a y and we have to change the d to an x. That says y equals. So this bit here says y equals. That's a weird equals sign right there. So I can start writing on my equation, which is negative 1 over 16. You can type that in a variety of different ways. 1 over 16. Actually, I should put the negative inside that. Negative 1 over 16 times, now there's a d, but we're going to use the x. Use this x right here under the alpha key, minus 10, squared, which is this button here, squared to the power of 2, and then plus 9. All right, so when I draw that, all right, it sort of looks almost like a straight line, but there's a slight curve on there. The problem is my view window. I can't see enough of my equation. So you really need to think very carefully about what do I want my x to go between and what do I want my y to go up to. So this is, in this question, they've actually told us, sketch the graph of the rule from 0 is less than x, which is less than 22. So we should be able to go into our view window, which is F3, and our x minimum and our x maximum, I'm going to set that up to be from 0 to 22. So that's our x minimum and that's our x maximum. Now I'm actually going to do something a little bit sneaky here. I'm not going to set it to 0. I'm going to move it back just a little bit, maybe to like -2. The reason I'm going to do that is because I want to be able to see the axis, and if I set it at 0, I won't be able to see that y-axis. All right, let's see what that looks like. Whoa, okay. So you can see that it's taking off from here, it's taking off into space, and then it's coming back down again. It must be coming back down around there. So I need to change my view window in terms of my y-axis. So view window. Now, the javelin never sort of goes underground, so I don't need the y value to be negative, but I am going to make it -1 for the same reason I made the x -1. But my y max, well, how high is this javelin going to go? I don't really know. I'm going to guess about 30. See how that looks. All right, so execute, draw. Whoa, okay. That's pretty good. Look, I can probably play with my view window a little more. Obviously, I've gone way too high. Let's just change the y maximum here to 20. Oh, let's go for less than that, 15. And draw that. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm just going to move my view window just one more time. Just move my x max just out a little bit, just so I can see it hit the ground and maybe go under the ground a little bit. Okay, that looks really good. Now that I've got the sketch in the box the way that I want it, I just need now to use my Gsolve, and my Gsolve is really, really, really useful. So once I've drawn it, F5, And these are all the things it will tell me. Now the root is the x-intercept. So let me press F1. And it gives me an x equals -2 when y equals 0. So that's one of the roots. But it should also give me another root, because remember there's two roots here. The way that you do that is by pressing the arrow back and forth. So there's a root at x equals 22 and y equals 0, and there's a root at x equals -2 and y equals 0. All right, press the exit button. Oops, I just drew that again. What else can we do? Gsolve. Find the maximum. That's the maximum of not the whole graph, but just what's on the screen. So you need to be careful about how you use it. All right, so the maximum on the screen when x equals 10, y equals 9. So that's going to be our turning point. Our turning point for this equation is 10, 9. And that's pretty obvious because it's in turning point form. We could have known that without sketching it. Okay. I don't think we have to press exit. Maybe just execute. No. Okay. What about F5? Okay. If I press F5, that'll take me back to Gsolve. I can press the minimum here, but watch what happens when I press the minimum. Okay. No minimum found. That's because this just kind of goes off the screen and keeps going. The calculator knows that, so there's no minimum. But if the equation was like this, then there would be a minimum. Okay, back, draw, Gsolve. Okay, a y, that says intercept. Okay, so if I click F4 for the y-intercept, I can see that when x equals 0, y equals 2.75. That means when the guy threw the javelin, it started off at a height of 2.75 meters. Okay, that's where he threw it from. Okay, what else we got? Gsolve. Okay, intersection. I might come back to that one. That's an interesting one. Next. Okay, the y-calc and the x-calc. These are really, really useful if you're asked a question like, when is the javelin at 5 meters? Or, when is the javelin 5 meters high? So I'll do a y-calc here. Watch what happens when I press y-calc. It asks me for an x value. So the question here might be something like, how high is the javelin when it has traveled 10 meters? So type, let's try a different one, 14 meters. So it's basically subbing the number 14 into the equation for x. So when x equals 14, y equals 8. Okay. And then you can go the other way and do an x-calc. And an x-calc, it says like, when is the javelin 7 meters high? 7. And our answer is the javelin is 7 meters high when it's traveled 4.34 meters across. But the javelin's 7 meters high at 2 places. So I can arrow across. And there's going to be a second answer there. It's also 7 meters high on the way down when it's 15.65 meters across. All right. So our x-calc and our y-calc, they're really, really useful for those sorts of questions. This one you'll learn more about in year 11 and 12, so we ignore that one. I'm going to go back and just show you one more thing. Okay, I'm going to draw a second graph here. Let's call it y equals -2x plus 12. So that's going to be a straight line. Watch what happens when I draw this now. Okay, you can see I've got like a javelin, and I've also got this straight line here. Maybe it's like a bird diving into the ground for some bizarre reason. Now, I wonder where those two meet. Now, if we want to know where those two meet, we can click Gsolve and this intersection button. If I press the intersection button, those two equations, this equation and this equation, meet at x equals 3.02 and y equals 5.95. That's the simultaneous solution. All right, there's heaps you can do with your graphics calculator.